Hey everyone, welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today I have someone who I've known since like 2011 now. I started as an intern on her show, and now she has created a documentary called The Wellness Warrior and a book called It's Time to Give a Feck. And as you can see, it's kind of going in and out like a ghost here, but that's just because I have a green screen.
Okay.
Okay, Chaz. So how are you doing today, Chaz?
Hi, Mike. I remember when you came on as our intern to our television show.
Yeah.
It's been, quite a number of years ago, and you just keep going and you've branched out in many ways. And one thing that I do remember, even as an intern, you were so your talent with the camera and I think photography and video interviews and editing that's what really stands out. And
Yeah.
I do remember also that you were a kind person because believe it or not, even though it was TV and it had nothing to do with kindness, I hadn't written my effect book yet, but that was important to me. I like working with people who are kind and people that we like and people who make it easy to be and work as a team with other people.
Well,
So,
yeah, that's what I loved about your show. It never felt like there were competing egos or anything like that. Everyone was working together on one thing, and I never felt like I was going to work when I was going there. It felt like fun when I was going there.
oh,
So
okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah. So I guess we could start with your documentary, The Wellness Warrior. And how do you say Deborah's last name? Is it Seckley or
You know what? It's pronounced Zeke.
Zeke? Okay.
Yes, it's a Hungarian. Her late husband, uh, whom they called the professor, was from Hungary.
Yeah.
Zeke,
So
Deborah Zeke. Mhm.
Okay, so she created the wellness center in the Rancho
La Puerta.
La
Yes.
Puerta, yes. How did she manage to do so much? Because, she has a lot of balls to juggle there.
Oh my God. Okay, Mike. Deborah Zeke was a girl of like 17 or 18 when she married the professor, and they started a place called Rancho La Puerta, Ranch of the Door, in Tecate, Mexico. And it is celebrating its 85th anniversary this year, I think.
Wow.
Years. So that means, and Deborah was, like I said, 17 or 18. She will be 103 years old this May. And I'm
Wow.
looking forward to going and helping her celebrate her 103rd birthday. So
Yeah.
she's been running it. She's been there continuously since she started it. She also started the luxury spa, the Golden Door,
Mm-hmm.
that's in San Marcos, California. That one was actually sold to a corporation, but it's still and actually resold to an individual. So the Golden Door is still going strong too. I think
Uh,
it's maybe about 60 or 70 years old.
yeah. Deborah was 90 when she founded the New American Foundation and has lobbied for wellness. She even ran for Congress at the age of 60. How does she not let age limit her?
You know, we asked that question, and I love her attitude. She said, rather than thinking about how old you are, she said, because you're going to be that age anyway.
Mm,
Her idea is to look around and see what problems need to be resolved. And if she thinks that she can do something to help resolve an issue, that's how she does so many things. So she said at one point she looked around, and when she was 90 years old, I think it was, um, or when she was 100, no, when she was 90, yeah, she looked around and she said she thought that people should take more agency over their own health. And that's when, and even though she had been in the health, sort of the spa fitness industry for so long, that's when she decided to become the wellness warrior,
mm.
telling people don't just wait for the pharmaceutical companies to do it, take control of your own health.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you end up meeting Deborah, and how did you decide to make a documentary on her?
So I met Deborah probably 35 or 40 years ago, I think, when I first went to one of her spas. I've been both to Rancho La Puerta and to the Golden Door. And I admired her, and so many women admired her because when you when you look at her, you don't think, oh, this is a superwoman. You just see she's kind of a determined person. And when she first started the spa, it was her husband's vision that started it. But she's been running it since like 19, maybe 1959 or 1970 or whatever year it was. I can't remember exactly which year she that he was no longer part of it and she was running it. And all these years, it's gone through many different changes, and she tries to keep up with. She try. This is what Deborah told me. She said she looks around and she not only sees what problems needs to be resolved, but she looks for good people. She said she looks for people who are smarter than herself who can help her solve issues. And so she tries to hire good people.
Mm.
She has a
And
good eye for that. So anyway, when I met her, I never thought that I'd be making a documentary about her because when I first met her, I was just someone going to the spas. It was later, in later years, when I realized how much Deborah has added to the spa industry, to the health and wellness and the fitness industry in this country. And I was thinking the only people that I had heard about were men. Like, people knew who Jack LaLanne was, but people didn't know Deborah Zakay and her contributions. And I said, a lot of the women who went to the spa said, we need to make a movie about Deborah Zakay. They were people who were like maybe they were connected with a movie studio or with a television network. And so they were people who could greenlight projects. I wasn't. We had RogerEbert.com, which is a great, one of the preeminent movie review sites. But at that time, I wasn't doing a lot of movies. Now I do produce movies as well. There's a firewall between what I do there. I'm taking much too long to answer this question.
no, you're
Okay,
fine.
Mike, here I am. So 2 or 3 years went by, and all of these women who could greenlight a project, when we would get together again, and I would see them, I would say, "Did you start the project with Deborah Zakay?" And they said, "No." And finally, my daughter Sonia, who's the vice president of development at RogerEbert.com at Ebert Digital, said, "Mom, what did you always tell us? If you want to get something done, do it yourself." She said, "You can do it. You do it." I said, "No, I can't do it. I don't, I haven't, directed a documentary." And she said, you can. You've supported enough people. You've been around movie making long enough. You know how to do it. Just get started." And so I started. I got Scott Dumbler from Mint Media to help. He's helped make things with me at the Cannes Film Festival and other things. And we just started going and filming Deborah. I really didn't know. I really was hoping at some point to turn the project over to someone else, but it didn't work out that way. And so as Deborah's 100, oh, and then the pandemic hit and we
Mm,
had to stop everything. The whole world sort of stopped. In between that time, Deborah had a few health scares.
mm,
And since she was almost 100 years old, I thought, oh my goodness, she may never, we don't know if she's going to make it.
mm,
So as soon as we could start the process again, I started interviewing other people, and I decided for Deborah's 102nd birthday, I wanted to give her a surprise
mm.
and have a version of Wellness Warrior finished. And so that's what I did. I presented her the documentary about herself for her 102nd birthday, and she loved it.
So what was it like making your first documentary? Was there like a lot of challenges that you had to meet and overcome?
So, okay, some of the same challenges that other filmmakers would have. Number one, money, because there
Mm,
really wasn't money for the project. So I started putting in my own money to get the project made. Finding the time to interview. the people because some of the people that we interviewed were in, I live in Chicago. Some people were in LA. Some people were, I mean, I think we may have had someone from Germany who was in it. And it just so happened that he was going to be in America for, oh, wait a minute, did he make it in the movie or did he make it in the after? I'm forgetting part of it, but the logistics of getting people together, putting together the list, because since she has such a long, varied life, there were a lot of pieces. And in fact, there's still something I would like to do. Even though she didn't go, um, even though she didn't win when she uh, campaigned for office, she went to Washington and she saw that when a new congressperson is elected to office or a new senator, when they go, there was no book or anything to tell them how to set up their office or what to do.
Mm.
So she put together the book. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's the book that every congressperson gets, even to this day,
Mm.
when they're elected to office. That was a project put together by Deborah Zake.
Mm.
So I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yeah. What experience did you have before that helped you make the documentary? Was your role as an executive producer on various projects help you take on such a challenge?
Yes, Mike, thank you for that question. It was, well, it goes back and even a little further than that. When, um, when I would go, when Roger, my late husband, Roger Ebert, was interviewing people about movies, sometimes he said he felt that as a film critic, he should know every aspect of filmmaking. So he would go on sets. He would talk to the grips. He would talk to the directors. He talked to producers. He talked to the
Mm.
actors. He was really curious about what's all of the parts and pieces of making a film. And so when we were together, I would sometimes go on these trips with them. And so I would also learn a little bit about filmmaking, not enough that made me think, oh, I could be a filmmaker, but just enough to understand the various parts when we're writing about films. So that's one part of it. The second part is when I became interested through my foundation uh, in supporting films. Sometimes at Sundance, there was something called the Catalyst Forum, and they invited me and some other investors, what they called creative investors, in to people would pitch us films about social justice. And so if there was a film that we were going to support, then I too would sometimes get a little more involved in it than just giving money. I was really interested in seeing what the filmmakers wanted to do. So I did learn a little bit about the filmmaking process. And then I had Scott Dumler, who's made some films, and he's both a director, a producer, and an editor. And he, over the years, some of the things that we've done, come to think of it, I actually did produce some films on my own before Wellness Warrior. I forgot about that, Mike. But I'm just going on and on, Mike. Let me stop because
No, you're good. You're good. You're doing
I
great.
don't know. I don't know how to, this is what Roger told me. He said, I don't know how to speak in sound bites. So I'm sorry.
No, the longer the better. It doesn't bother me at all. Uh,
Okay.
Deborah lost her son to cancer and her granddaughter to a car accident, yet she never
Yeah.
gave up. What do you think drives Deborah towards continuing her work while not letting tragedy put her down?
Oh, yeah, those were really two really sad times in her life. Her son Alex, who used to help her run, he was the one who was probably the most like Deborah. She also has a daughter, Sarah Olivia, who is the president of Rancho La Puerta now. Um, and her granddaughter, Sarah Olivia's daughter, Emily, was someone who they thought she kind of looked like Deborah to me, and they thought that she was interested in maybe helping to run the facility as she got older. She was killed in a car accident when she was 17 years old. And Deborah said those were like two of the saddest times in her life. But I asked Deborah where this resilience came from. And she said, there's a life force that helps you to go on, and you can't dwell on the past. She's constantly looking forward or staying in the present and looking forward. And she said that she had to release them to wherever they were going, and she hoped wherever they were going was a good place. But she had to believe that wherever they were going was good for them, and she had to continue with her life. I mean, I did interview, some people in the film talk about her resilience, how they've seen her as just a very resilient woman.
So switching gears to your book, it's time to give a feck, not the F word,
Okay,
but with
all
the,
right. The
yeah,
FECK.
yes,
Let's use the
FECK.
whole, and that's an acronym. And the whole title of the book is It's Time to Give a Feck,
Yep. Yeah. So,
Elevating Humanity Through Forgiveness, Empathy, Compassion, and Kindness. Those are the four principles that FECK stands for.
yeah. How did you go about uh defining the FECK principles?
So actually, the E in fact stands for empathy or
Hmm.
Ebert, because Roger said that good movies help to empathize with people who are sharing this earthly journey with us, allowing you to put yourself in their shoes and seeing what it's like to be a person of a different age or gender or race or socioeconomic status or a different political persuasion, and respecting those differences, even if you don't agree with them. So empathy was a really, really big deal. And that's, in the way we lived our lives together in our a foundation that we put together. Empathy was something that Roger and I both just cherished. And then as I was thinking about writing the book, some things came up. I met with South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu,
Mm.
and he talked about forgiveness because I was asking him about Nelson Mandela, and he was telling me how important forgiveness is in one's life. He said forgiveness allows you to stop feeling like a victim and to release the burden on your shoulders of whatever resentment you may have against a system or against a person. And so forgiveness, I added that the compassion and kindness. Oh, and also there was another person, disturbing the peace, a filmmaker named Stephen Apkon
Mhm.
and Marcina Hell made a movie called Disturbing the Peace about Israelis and Palestinians. And there, the issue of forgiveness was very, very big as well. And so I realized that I had the empathy, the compassion, and the kindness. And I realized that forgiveness was a bigger piece, even more difficult. And that when you put all those things together, the FECK principle really helps you create a more cohesive society and really live better with your fellow human being.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to trying to connect with your fellow human being, how do we connect to people who fundamentally disagree with us, even voting against our own interest out of bigotry or spite or whatever? How do you think we can operate better as a society and reach across the aisle to other people?
Oh my, that's a really biggie. One thing that I saw, because I wrote the fact book, people would write to me or send me, either emails or text, or when I went out to promote the book, people would talk to me about how even within their own family, around the Thanksgiving table, for instance,
Mm.
people were divided politically, and how that really just made things so uncomfortable for families. And I thought that foolishly, that would get better, but it seems like it's only gotten worse.
Mhm.
I do think that, well, I'm just going to say this. You know, Elon Musk said something the other day that I couldn't believe. Talked about how it called empathy almost suicidal and said you can over empathize to your own detriment or something. And I don't think he really, I would like to hear from empathy hear about empathy from a person who really has a real understanding of why we empathize in society, how society got together as a mold, and how it made us stronger as a society. It doesn't mean that you become a doormat. It doesn't mean that you suspend all laws or anything. There are still systems and things set up, but you must have a heart. You must care about whether children are starving or whether, children can get a fair education. You must care about whether the system is set up so that people can fairly get a job. And when they talk about suspending DEI, which means diversity, equity, and inclusion, those are not concepts that mean that somebody gets something over somebody. These were concepts that were put in place because traditionally the laws were set to discriminate. I
Mhm.
was an attorney at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and I saw workplaces that were almost like 100% white based on
Mhm.
tradition or based on discrimination. We knew that there were schools. The reason that there are historically Black colleges and universities is because there were schools that discriminated against people who were Black and did not allow them. There were clubs, things were set up. I'm at an age when I remember traveling on the train with my mom and seeing for colored and white signs for drinking fountains.
Mhm.
They didn't even want people to drink from the same drinking fountain. Some of these things seem ridiculous to young people now, and I love it when you talk about the civil rights movement and some young people today who are, thank goodness, much more compassionate and empathetic. They can't believe these things. They said, "What? You couldn't go to these schools, you couldn't do this, you couldn't get a job because of your color or because you were a woman or whatever." Yes. And so I have more hope and faith that some of the people growing up today will make a better world and not say, and will understand that a word like diversity is not a dirty word because this society is diverse and everyone deserves an equal chance.
Yeah, and on page 188 and 188, in my for my copy of the book,
Mhm.
it said I learned how to show compassion not only to him, which I think you're referencing to Roger, but also to myself because we're living this journey together. How do you
Mhm.
embrace living the journey that is life?
Oh, that's a big question. And you know what? I have to, okay, so maybe I'm an empath, but when you ask me that question, I can feel it in my heart because it says, how can you not embrace this? You
Mm,
know, there is a person, and I don't want to use a name, who, when we were growing up, was someone was kind of difficult. And we would say, do we have to be kind to that person? Do we have to, include that person? And my mother said, yes, because when you see someone like that, you may find that there is a reason that they're doing the things that they're doing that are not so like a teamwork kind of thing. And whether you find out what the reason is or not, sometimes that person needs your love and your friendship more than the person that you have more in common with. And we're like, oh, we just thought that was so difficult. But I tried to apply those principles, and yeah, and it actually did work. There are people who just want to be embraced and who may not have had the background. Maybe they grew up in a foster home where or maybe they were abused in some way and maybe they need more love. It doesn't mean that you excuse everything like criminal acts that people do. But I do believe in sometimes we have to extend ourselves a little more to certain people.
Yeah. Have you ever had a moment where your empathy was challenged?
Uh, almost every day. Yeah,
Yeah, you just turn on the
recently.
news and see
Yeah,
what
turn on
Trump's
the
doing,
news.
and it challenges it.
I, yeah, yeah. And so this is what I also say because I in in my legal background, I stopped practicing law years ago, but I still, the way that I was, because I went to law school, because I practice law, there's certain ways that I think. And when I think about resistance to things that are going on that are, um, just illegal things that I think that this administration is doing, or unconstitutional things, I start thinking, okay, one of the ways that you resist and one of the ways that you do things is you take them to court. You actually take legal action. So um, the people that I'm empathizing with at this point are the people who are being unfairly targeted
Mm,
for jobs. They talk about going after fraud and corruption and abuse, and they're not. Those are not the things. There are ways to do that. There are efficiency experts who go into organizations. First of all, you find out what the organization is, what its mission is, who's doing what. And so there's an organized way to do that. You don't just start taking a buzz saw and chopping without knowing what you're doing. There are efficiency experts that you can employ, and if you are finding fraud, waste, or abuse, or corruption, or whatever, those are the things that you weed out. You don't just go willy-nilly disrupting people's lives. The thing also that you don't do is try to dismantle a democracy
mm,
that's existed for 250 years
mhm,
without some thought, we have a Congress, we have elected representatives, we have, aldermen and city councilmen and people who are put in place to help maintain serve goods and services and things in an orderly manner. You don't just take people, and also, you know what? We also have security measures, and right now we have people who can't even pass a security check, doing things, going into confidential records of people at different agencies. That is illegal.
mhm.
It's illegal. And some of the things are frankly, unconstitutional as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember if that's the question that you asked me,
No,
but
you got it. I think that's a very good reply to that. So, who do you think are leading examples? This will be the last question. Who do you think are leading examples in advocating empathy?
okay. So I thought that you were going to ask me about some movies, which I put down because I think
Oh,
was one of the things that
absolutely.
we're talking about. And I was thinking about some movies, some current movies. One of the movies that I thought were one of my favorite movies in was Terms of Endearment, and
Mm,
that with Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger, and about a mother whose daughter is dying.
mm,
And that movie, I loved it. It has a lot of things about compassion and kindness, forgiveness, and because the mother, Shirley MacLaine, in that movie was like very tough character to love, and yet when her daughter was dying, she came around. So that's an older movie, but in some of the newer movies that I wanted to talk about, The Nickel Boys by
yeah.
Roel Ross And it's based on actually a true story about these young African American boys who were at a reform school in the Jim Crow South and what they went through, shot very creatively by Jomo Frey. Um, that movie really is one where you see some of these principles play out. I think a movie like, oh my God, I have to tell you, Mike Lee's movie, Hard Truths.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that one with
Mm-mm.
Marianne Jean-Baptiste. She plays this woman who, for some reason, does not have empathy for other people, who's a very difficult person to love. And yet she has a sister who loves her and tries to embrace her and tries to help her cope with the world. It's a very difficult movie to watch, but it's a really good movie because I don't think you Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who was in not Life is Sweet. Yeah, I think it was Mike Lee's movie, Life is Sweet. Um, anyway, that's a movie to watch. Inside Out,
Mm. Yeah.
our animated cartoon. I love Inside Out because they actually have characters called, compassion or anxiety
Yeah.
or happiness or
Yeah,
sadness.
you got Lewis Black playing anger and yeah.
Yes, yes. And I love that movie because it is one that's also instructive. One thing I interviewed Pete Docter about that movie, and he said that they actually talked to psychologists in order to try to get the emotions for at age appropriate, like I think it was about adolescence and pre-adolescence. They tried to get them the cartoon as accurate psychologically as they could. And I think that's why it worked so well. So Inside Out 1, which was the best, Inside Out 2 is also good.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see, another movie I wanted to mention. Oh, and this is a it's also a comedy, but it has some real, it's called A Real Pain.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, And that one is Jesse Eisenberg
Hmm.
and Kieran McCulkin
Hmm.
and Jesse Eisenberg play the characters. And they want to learn more about their Jewish grandmother and her roots in Poland during the war. And so they make a trip together. And they're knuckleheads and but there are really, oh, when you really watch the whole movie, there's real pain in the movie too.
Hmm.
And you can see not just somebody being a real pain knucklehead, but someone experiencing real pain because of generational trauma. So that's also a good
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love how in Nickel Boys, like everything's taken through a first person perspective. So
Yeah.
you like literally you're feeling empathy by actually being in the character's eyes and
Yes.
seeing the world from their point of view.
He puts the camera over his shoulders to give you the first person view
Hmm.
of the character, which at first you kind of don't know what's going on, and you think, what is this? What's going? Then you really get it, what he's trying to do. Yeah, really creative.
Yeah. Well, Chaz, thank you so much for doing this. I'm gonna let you get back to your work, but I just want to say you've always been an inspiration to me.
Oh,
It's just like how you can actually exercise kindness in the workplace where there isn't such competitiveness. Because I've worked on movies like Transformers, and empathy is not on a Michael Bay set.
well, thank you, Mike. You always did good work, and you were, like I said, you were an asset to have, and I just okay. The older I get, the more I realize it's important. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who have a heart.
Mhm.
Surround yourself with people who can empathize with other people and not just make themselves me first all the time.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with people who like to have a good time and who want to see, who are happy. If something good happens to you, they're happy for you rather
Hmm.
than jealous of
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
who want to help you work toward your goals. The older I get, the more I surround myself with those kind of people, and it just makes life better. So thank
Ab
you. We give
Absolutely.
a FECK. Surround yourself with people who give a feck.
That's right. The book is It's Time to Give a Feck, FECK, and it's available in bookstores now and online. So, guys, if you check it out, it's a easy read. There's a lot of great examples of empathy. I think of the Colin Kaepernick situation as one of
Oh,
them, where the NFL, they chose kind of blind patriotism over understanding why he kneeled during the national anthem.
right.
And yeah, there's many other great examples that you'll find in the book.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on. All right,
Okay.
folks. If you liked what you listened to, remember to subscribe to YPA Reviews. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. And yeah, let's stay empathetic and stay kind, folks.